Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ba'd. Then before we begin with the first lecture, inshallah, I'd just like to go through the program for the next 2 days, which inshallah will begin shortly with the first talk, which is on the hadith of Muaadh bin Jabal radiyallahu anhu. Direct me to an action that will enter me into Jannah and distance me from the fire. This is some advice that Muaadh bin Jabal sought from the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this will be the first lecture, inshallah, in a short while. At 2:15 p.m. after Salatul Asr, we have a live link up with Sheikh Muhammad Al-Anjari, Hafidhahullah, from Kuwait, and this will be translated into English, inshallah ta'ala. And then at 5 p.m. there will be a link with the Sheikh and the Allama, Sheikh Ubaid Al-Jabri from Medina, and this will be, or the subject of the talk will be, the levels of restraining the soul, part 1, knowledge and action. And this will be translated as well, inshallah ta'ala. Then, after Salatul Isha, there will be a lecture by Abu Khadija on adherence to Salafiyya is the path to Jannah. As for tomorrow, then at 11 a.m. inshallah there will be a lecture by Abu Sahib al-Somali on Tawheed and the Sunnah, and this will be in the Somali language. At 2:15, Hassan al-Somali will give a talk on the importance of taking account of oneself before death, of calling the soul to account. Then at 5 p.m. we have another link up with Sheikh Ubaid, Hafidhahullah, and he will continue his talk on the levels of restraining the soul, part 2. And we also have a lecture by Abu Hakim at 7:45 p.m, life, death and the resurrection. This is a schedule, inshallah. It might change because there are some other links that we're trying to arrange with some of the mashayikh from Saudi Arabia. So subject to that, the schedule might change, so just keep, the schedule will be posted on the doors and outside, so just keep your eyes open for that, inshallah ta'ala. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فإن أحسن الكلام كلام الله وخير الهدى هدى محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وإن شر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. Then, as the theme of the conference is on the subject of your life and your death and the hereafter, and which path have you chosen and where will this path lead you, then inshallah it's befitting that we begin with this hadith, which is highly relevant and which contains the same, or is intended in the same direction. And this hadith is the hadith of Muaadh bin Jabal radiyallahu anhu, one of the greatest from the Sahaba, and one of the fuqaha and from the ulama, one of the great scholars from the Sahaba. And this hadith has been collected by Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah in his Al-Arba'in al-Nawawiyya, the 40 hadith which he compiled. And this is hadith number 29. And inshallah we'll read through this hadith in the Arabic and then the translation, and then we'll go through the commentary that Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah, the brief commentary that he's made upon this hadith, and also the Sheikh has extracted around 25 to 30 important lessons or benefits or points which have been extracted from this hadith. And inshallah we'll try to work through this subject for the rest of for this lesson up until Salatul Dhuhr, and we may continue after Salatul Dhuhr inshallah ta'ala if the time is required. So Muaadh bin Jabal radiyallahu anhu qala, that Muaadh bin Jabal radiyallahu anhu, may Allah be pleased with him, he said, قلت, I said, Ya Rasulullah, أخبرني بعمل يدخلني الجنة ويباعدني من النار. He said that I said to the messenger, O messenger of Allah, inform me of an action that will enter me into paradise and which will distance me from the fire. Qala, so the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, لَقَدْ سَأَلْتَ عَنْ عَظِيمٍ, that you have indeed asked about a great and mighty affair. This is a mighty affair that you have asked about, a great affair. وَإِنَّهُ لَيَسِيرٌ عَلَى مَنْ يَسَرَهُ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ يَسَرَهُ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى عَلَيْهِ, that you have indeed asked about a mighty affair, but it is easy upon the one for whom Allah the Most High makes it easy. Then the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam, he began with the action or the advice. So he said, first of all, تَعْبُدُ اللَّهَ لَا تُشْرِكُ بِهِ شَيْئًا, that you worship Allah alone and that you do not associate any partners with Him in worship. وَتُقِيمُ الصَّلَاةِ وَتُؤْتِ الزَّكَاةِ وَتَصُومُ رَمَضَانَ وَتَحُجُّ الْبَيْتِ. Then he mentioned the remainder of the 5 pillars. That you establish the prayer, that you give the zakah, that you fast in Ramadan, and that you perform pilgrimage to the house, to the Kaaba. ثُمَّ قَالَ, then he continued, the Messenger ﷺ, he continued, أَلَا أَدُلُّكَ عَلَى أَبْوَابِ الْخَيْرِ. Then he said to Muaadh, shall I not direct you to the doors of goodness or to the affairs of goodness? And then he continued and he said, الصَّوْمُ جُنَّةٌ, that fasting is a shield. وَالصَّدَقَةُ تُطْفِئُ الْخَطِيئَةَ كَمَا يُطْفِئُ الْمَاءُ النَّارَ. And charity extinguishes or removes the sins just like water extinguishes the fire. وَالصَّلَاةُ الرَّجُلِ فِي جَوْفِ اللَّيْلِ, and also the prayer of a man in the middlemost part of the night. ثُمَّ تَلَى, then the Messenger recited an ayah from the Quran. تَتَجَافَى جُنُوبُهُمْ عَنِ الْمَدَاجِئِ يَدْعُونَ رَبَّهُمْ خَوْفًا وَطَمَعًا, to the end of the ayah. The verse in Surah As-Sajdah, which is the 32nd surah, verses 16 to 17, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the believers, and He said about them that they forsake their beds, they abandon their beds, and they call upon their Lord in hope and in fear. To the end of the ayah. Then the Messenger continued, ثُمَّ قَالَ, then the Messenger said, أَلَا أُخْبِرُكَ بِرَأْسِ الْأَمْرِ وَعُمُودِهِ وَذِرْوَةِ سَنَامِهِ. Then he said to Muaadh, shall I not inform you of the head of the affair, the head of the matter, and its pillar or its support, and its peak, the peak of the affair. So he mentioned 3 things. Shall I not tell you of the head of the affair, and its pillar, and its peak? So Muaadh bin Jabal radiyallahu anhu, he said, Bala ya Rasulullah, of course, O Messenger of Allah. So the Messenger said, Qala Ra'sul Amri al-Islamu, that the head of the affair is al-Islam, the deen of Islam. Wa'amuduhu as-salah, and its pillar is the prayer. Wadirwatu sinamih, and the peak of it, or the peak of its hump, sinam is like a camel hump, but the peak of its hump is al-jihad. ثم قال ألا أخبرك بملاك ذلك كله. Then the Messenger said, shall I not tell you that which holds all of this together? Something which holds everything together, everything that's been mentioned so far, something which holds all of that together. So Muaadh bin Jabal radiyallahu anhu said, Qultu Bala ya Rasulullah, Bala ya Rasulullah, of course, O Messenger of Allah. So the Messenger فَأَخَذَ بِلِسَانِهِ وَقَالَ, so he took hold of his tongue and he said, كُفَّ عَلَيْكَ هَذَا, which means he said, restrain this, or hold on to this, meaning restrain this, hold this back. And then Muaadh bin Jabal, he said, قُلْتُ يَا نَبِيَّ اللَّهِ, I said, O Prophet of Allah, وَإِنَّا لَمُؤَاخَذُونَ بِمَا نَتَكَلَّمَ فِيهِ or نَتَكَلَّمَ بِهِ. He said, O Prophet of Allah, we are taken to account for what we speak, for what we say. And the Messenger said, فَقَالَ ثَقِلَتْكَ أُمُّكَ يَا مُعَاذ. That may your mother lose you, O Mu'adh. وَهَلْ يَكُبُّ النَّاسَ فِي النَّارِ عَلَى وُجُوهِهِمْ أَوْ قَالَ عَلَى مَنَاخِرِهِمْ إِلَّا حَسَائِدُ أَلْسِنَتِهِمْ. So the messenger said, may your mother lose you, O Mu'adh. And are the people thrown into the fire or overthrown into the fire on their faces, or he may have said upon their noses or their nostrils, except due to the harvest of their tongues? Meaning except due to the results and the produce of their tongues? And this hadith has been reported by Tirmidhi, and this has been reported by Tirmidhi. So this is the hadith, and this hadith contains many important lessons and benefits, and also it's a direct answer to the question or to the theme that we are speaking of, which is, what is the way to enter into paradise? And what is the way to be saved from the hellfire? So we begin, first of all, with the sharh of Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah, and he begins by saying that if we look at the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum, we see that the Sahaba, they were people who had great and mighty concerns. That the concerns they had in their minds, or the things that they thought about in their minds, were aliyah, they were lofty, they were high, lofty, noble. And this Sahabi in this particular hadith, Muaadh bin Jabal radiyallahu anhu, he didn't say to the messenger, O messenger, inform me of an action by which I can earn 30, 10 or 20 or 30, meaning dirhams or dinars. Tell me of something by which I can earn 10, 20, 30 dinars or dirhams. But anything which is similar to this, he didn't ask him about the dunya. Rather, he asked him, as occurs in the hadith, أخبرني بعمل يدخلني الجنة ويباعدني من النار. Tell me of something, inform me of an action that will enter me into paradise and will distance me from the hellfire. In other words, he was asking for the sabab. Tell me of a sabab. Direct me to a sabab, a cause, a reason that will enter me into paradise and distance me from the hellfire. So the messenger, as the Shaykh says, Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah, he said that the messenger replied, لَقَدْ سَأَلْتَ عَنْ عَظِيمٍ, that you have indeed asked about a great and mighty affair. This is a serious matter that you've asked about. And the Shaykh says, I wallahi azim, that by Allah, this is indeed a mighty affair. Why? Because as the Shaykh says, this issue here itself is the very life that we live. Meaning that this life that we are living, the whole purpose and the whole intent behind it is to enter paradise and to be saved from the hellfire. This is what the whole of life actually revolves around, this goal and this objective. That you eventually enter paradise and that you are saved from the hellfire. And this is the fawz, this is the success and the falah, the success and the victory that you will achieve. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes it in the Quran, فَمَنْ زُخْزِهَا عَنِ النَّارِ وَأُدْخِلَ الْجَنَّةَ فَقَدْ فَازَ. That the one who is saved, who is rescued from the fire, meaning he doesn't actually enter into it, the one who is rescued from the fire and who is entered into paradise, he is the one who is successful. So this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's described that this is the extreme success, the greatest success. So for this reason, the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam, this is why he described this question of Muaadh bin Jabal by saying, لَقَدْ سَأَلْتَ عَنْ أَذِيمٍ, you have indeed asked about a great and mighty affair. However, as the Shaykh says, and the Shaykh praises Allah, وَلَكِنْ الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ, but all praise is due to Allah, this matter, even though it's azim, even though it's a mighty affair, it has been made easy. As the Messenger said in this hadith, وَإِنَّهُ لَيَسِيرٌ عَلَى مَنْ يَسَّرَهُ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ, that this matter, even though it's difficult, even though it's mighty and great, it has been made easy for the one for whom Allah the Most High has made it easy. And then the Shaykh, he makes a supplication, Allahumma yassirhu alina ya Rabbal Alameen, Allah make it easy for us, O Lord of the worlds. And then he said that the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam, he indeed spoke the truth. Why? Because this deen of Islam is something that is built upon ease. It's something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's built this religion upon ease. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself says in the Quran, in Surah Al-Baqarah, the second surah, verse 185, يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ بِكُمُ الْيُسْرِ وَلَا يُرِيدُ بِكُمُ الْعُسْرِ, that Allah intends for you ease and He does not intend for you difficulty. So Allah intends with the Sharia and with the deen of Islam, Allah intends ease, not difficulty. And similarly, this religion, as the Shaykh continues and he says, has been built upon kindness and generosity. And the Messenger ﷺ, whenever he would send his Sahaba to the various places, whenever he would send them, he would always give them this advice. As the Shaykh says, he would say, يَسِّرُوا وَلَا تُعَسِّرُوا بَشِّرُوا وَلَا تُنَفِّرُوا. So the Messenger would say that make things easy upon the people, and don't make things hard. And give glad tidings to the people, give good news to the people, and don't make them flee away from you. And similarly, in another hadith, the Messenger ﷺ said, فَإِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُمْ مُيَسِّرِينَ وَلَمْ تُبْعَثُوا مُعَسِّرِينَ. That verily you have been sent, is addressing the Sahaba, that you have been sent as people who make things easy for the people. And you have not been sent, or you have not been raised as those who make things difficult for the people. So this shows that even though this affair that Muaadh bin Jabal radiyallahu anhu has asked about is a great and mighty affair, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it easy for the people, and this deen is in fact easy for the one who turns to Allah, for the one who has ikhlas to Allah, for the one who seeks to guide himself. Then this affair has been made easy for the one for whom Allah will make it easy. And this is one who seeks Allah, and who seeks His face, and so on and so forth. Then, after this introduction, so after the Messenger has explained that this is a great and mighty affair, but it's been made easy, then he begins to explain this matter. He begins to give the advice and to answer the question as to what will enter Muaadh into paradise. What is the action or the actions that will enter into paradise? So he said, Ta'bud Allah. This is what he began with. Ta'bud Allah. That you worship Allah. That you worship Allah alone. And the Shaykh says that what this means, ibadah here means tadhullul. Tadhullul lahu bil ibadah hubban wa ta'adhiman. And here the Shaykh has given one of the definitions that are given by the scholars for ibadah. This is one of the definitions, that you have the extreme of humility coupled with hub, which is love, and ta'zeem, which is that you venerate Allah, that you glorify Allah, that you consider Allah to be great, and you hold Him to be great. Hub and ta'zeem. And this, as we said, that when we look at the definition of ibadah, and the definition that the scholars have given, there are a number of definitions, 2 or 3 definitions, and this is one of them. The other definition that we're all familiar with, inshallah, is the definition of Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, where he said that ibadah is a comprehensive term under which comprises everything which Allah loves and is pleased with, from the inward and outward actions and statements. This is one of the famous the definitions of ibadah. This, what Shaykh ibn Taymiyyah has mentioned here, is also one of the definitions of ibadah, which is that it is the extreme of humility, tadhullul, where you lower yourself and you humble yourself, but it has to have hub and ta'zeem. Hub, which is love of Allah, and ta'zeem, which is to glorify Allah and to consider Him to be great. Why is this? As the Shaykh will explain later, is because with love of Allah, you actually perform the actions which He has commanded, you obey Him. And with ta'zeem, by considering Allah to be great and by venerating Him in your heart, you keep away from His prohibitions. So it's necessary, along with humility, that you have hub, love of Allah, that will lead you to obey Him, and ta'zeem, which will keep you away from disobeying Him. So the Shaykh says that this is ibadah. This is how ibadah should emanate from a person. As for those people who think that just because they have accepted Islam, and just because they are worshipping Allah, and they treat this as if this is a favor to Allah, as if they now are doing a favor to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then he said, that the Shaykh said that this is just like those people whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has described in the Quran. Allah says in the Quran, يَمُنُّونَ عَلَيْكَ أَنْ أَسْلَمُوا قُلْ لَا تَمُنُّوا عَلِيَّ إِسْلَامَكُمْ. So some people, they came, from the Arabs they came, and as Allah says, that they treat the fact that they will accept Islam as if it's a favor. as if they're doing a favor. As if they're doing a favor to you, O Muhammad. And so Allah commanded Muhammad, قُلْ لَا تَمُنُّوا عَلِيَّ إِسْلَامَكُمْ. So Allah commanded Muhammad ﷺ to say, don't treat your Islam as a favor to me. Don't treat your Islam as a favor to me. So this shows what the Shaykh is saying, that ibadah is tadallul with hub and ta'zeem. That you humble yourself and humiliate yourself and know yourself, and you couple this with hub and ta'zeem. And as for the people who think that they're doing a favor to Allah or to the Messenger in his time or to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then this is not correct. Then the Shaykh says, after mentioning ibadah, after mentioning ta'bud Allah, that you worship Allah alone, he then said, La tushriku bihi shay'a, that you do not commit or that you do not associate partners with Allah, any partner with Allah. And the Shaykh says here that the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, La tushriku bihi shay'a, anything. And this includes the prophets, and this includes the angels, and it includes the stones and the trees, or a prophet which is being sent. It's not restricted to any specific thing. Because he said shay'a, it's not restricted to any specific thing. And this is also an answer to those people who try to bring some of these arguments where they say that shirk is restricted to idols, or shirk, that we don't fall into shirk because we don't believe that these people or these individuals, they can create or they can own or they can provide, or that they have certain qualities or characteristics which only Allah possesses. Sometimes these people, they come with these arguments and they say that we're not committing shirk, and then they try to restrict shirk to just the idols or to trees or whatever, or to statues. And again here, as the Shaykh makes a point, as the Messenger said, La tushriku bihi shay'a. It's not what is being worshipped, but the fact that anything besides Allah is being worshipped. Then the Shaykh continues and he says that the Messenger, he completed the remainder of the pillars when he said, وَتُقِيمُ الصَّلَاةِ وَتُؤْتِ الزَّكَاةِ وَتَصُومُ رَمَضَانِ وَتَحُجُّ الْبَيْتِ. That he mentioned the remainder of the 5 pillars. After this, the Messenger then said, أَلَا أَدُلُّكَ عَلَى أَبْوَابِ الْخَيْرِ. Shall I not inform you, O Muaadh, of the doors of goodness, or the affairs of goodness? So the Shaykh says here that when the Messenger said, he used this word, أَلَا أَدُلُّكَ عَلَى أَبْوَابِ الْخَيْرِ. Abwab. The word abwab, it can be used to mean 2 things. The first of it is abwab, meaning a door which a person who leaves and a person who enters, he goes through a door to leave or to enter. This is the first meaning, bab. And the second meaning is, it can also be used to refer to mas'ala or masail, like to an issue or to a matter, to an affair. And the Shaykh says that when you look at the way scholars write in their books, or when they deal with issues in their books, they will say, for example, هذا الباب في كذا وكذا, that this subject or this topic is in such and such an issue. Or the muhaddithin, sometimes the muhaddithin, they will say, لا يصح في هذا الباب شيء, that in this subject or in this issue, there is nothing authentic from the Sunnah. So in other words, the word abwab used in this hadith, it can mean masail, meaning issues or affairs, or it can literally mean, it's also possible for it to mean literally the door. So in other words, the meaning would be, shall I not show you the affairs of goodness? Or it could mean, shall I not show you the doors of goodness? It can mean both. It can have both of these 2 meanings. So then the Messenger went on to explain what are some of these affairs of goodness. What are some of these doors of goodness? So he began with fasting. He said, As-sawmu junnah. As-sawmu junnah. What is junnah? It means, we would say that fasting is a shield. So the Shaykh says, meaning that this is something which withholds and prevents a person in this life, and it also withholds him in the hereafter. What does it mean? This means that in this life, fasting is a restraint. It's something that holds you back from falling into that which is haram, from those things which are haram specifically in the state of fasting. This includes things like eating or fulfilling some of his desires which are prohibited when you are fasting. And this is why fasting is considered to be a shield in the sense that it withholds you and it restrains you from these affairs. Similarly, if someone was to wrong you while you are fasting, you've been commanded not to transgress against him. Rather, you've been commanded to say, I'm fasting, I'm fasting. So this is how fasting is a shield. It prevents you from this transgression, and it holds you back from those affairs which are prohibited. And as for in the hereafter, then the shield is in a different sense. In the hereafter, it's a shield in the sense that you are shielded from the fire, that you are protected from those things which will harm you, either on the sirat or actually within the fire itself. So in this life, it's a shield in the sense that it withholds you from the prohibited actions, and in the hereafter, it's a shield in the sense that it protects you and it withholds you from the punishment in the hereafter. So as for Sawm, then the Shaykh says, for this Sawm is a worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by withholding from those things that would nullify your fast from Fajr up until the setting of the sun. The second thing that the Shaykh, that Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam mentioned, and which the Shaykh explains, is the issue of sadaqah, charity. The Messenger said, وَالصَّدَقَةُ تُطْفِئُ الْخَطِيئَةِ كَمَا يُطْفِئُ الْمَاءُ النَّارِ. The charity extinguishes the evil deeds, just like water extinguishes the fire. Here the Shaykh says that this sadaqah is unrestricted. This applies to all forms of sadaqah, be it that which is wajib, or be it that which is voluntary, something which is just mustahab, or something which is voluntary. And the Shaykh says that khati'ah here is the sins of Bani Adam. These are the acts of disobedience which a person will fall into. So the Shaykh, he says, the Shaykh says that the Messenger ﷺ, he gave an example of something which is hissi, something that we can actually physically perceive. For example, when you throw water on a fire, you can see it that it will extinguish the fire. So he used this example in order to put in our minds or to make us understand something which we can't really see. Meaning, how does a good deed, how does sadaqah, how does it remove or how does it extinguish a bad deed? That's something that we can't actually see. Something that the Shaykh calls, it's something that is ma'nawi. Something that it's like ma'nawi, meaning it's something that we can only think of, that we can't actually physically see. So, in other words, the Shaykh is saying that this is a type of teaching and a type of illustration or a method used by the Messenger ﷺ in order to help us understand, where he's taken a matter which is hissi, something that we can actually physically see and perceive in our day-to-day life, and he's used it to help us understand something that we can't actually see, that maybe we can't actually understand, which is, how can the giving of sadaqah, how does it actually extinguish and remove the bad deeds? After this, the third thing that was mentioned by the Messenger ﷺ, which are from the doors of goodness, is وَصَلَاةُ الرَّجُلِ فِي جَوْفِ اللَّيْلِ, which is a man praying in the middle of the night. And the Shaykh says that in the Hadith, this is linked to sadaqah, that just in the same sense that sadaqah extinguishes the bad deeds, then likewise the salah of a man, the prayer of a man in the night, it also extinguishes the bad deeds or the acts of disobedience. Then the Messenger ﷺ, he quoted an ayah from the Quran in order to use proof for the two affairs that he mentioned. The ayah that was mentioned by the Messenger was تَتَجَافَى جُنُوبُهُمْ عَنِ الْمَدَاجِئِ يَدْعُونَ رَبَّهُمْ خَوْفًا وَطَمَعًا وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ فَلَا تَعْلَمُ نَفْسٌ مَا أُخْفِيَ لَهُم مِّن قُرَّةِ أَعْيُنٍ جَزَاءً بِمَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. The verse is that their sides forsake their beds. Their sides forsake their beds, and they call upon their Lord out of fear and out of hope. And they spend from that which we have provided them with. And then he continues, so no soul knows what has been hidden for it from the pleasure of the eye as a reward of what they used to do. So here, in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has described the believers. And from the descriptions in this ayah is, first of all, that they do not sleep. Rather, they stay awake and they call upon their Lord out of fear and out of hope. So when they remember their sins, they have fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when they remember the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon them, then they have hope. So this shows that they are between fear and hope when they stay awake at night and they pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And secondly, Allah said, وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. And from that which we have provided them with, or sustained them with, they spend. So here there are two things mentioned in this ayah. First of all, the prayer of a person in the night time. That's mentioned in this verse. And secondly, the giving of sadaqah, the giving of that which Allah has bestowed upon you. So in this ayah that the Messenger ﷺ mentioned here, there are the 2 points, sadaqah and the salah during the night, which are the same 2 things that he mentioned to Muaadh bin Jabal as being from the affairs or from the abwab, from the doors of goodness. Okay, after this, the Messenger ﷺ, he went on to inform Muaadh of yet another matter. And he said, أَلَا أُخْبِرُكَ بِرَأْسِ الْأَمْرِ وَعَمُودِهِ وَذِرْوَةِ سِنَامِهِ. So after telling him of the doors of goodness, he then went on to tell him what is the head of the matter, and what is its pole, what is its supporting pillar, and what is its peak. So he said, first of all, the Ra'sul Amr, the head of the matter, is Al-Islam. Al-Islam. And this Islam, as we know, as the scholars have defined it, is composed of 3 things. Al-Islam is comprised of 3 things. There are 3 things which comprise Islam. First of all, Al-Istislamu lillahi bit-tawheed. Al-Istislamu lillahi bit-tawheed, which is that we submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inwardly and outwardly upon tawheed. Right? So this is tawheed, that we worship Allah alone, inwardly and outwardly, in our hearts, upon our tongues, with our limbs, and we don't turn to or direct any of the forms of worship to other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the first of the 3 affairs which make up Al-Islam. The second is Al-Inqiyad lahu bit-ta'ah, that we comply with Him. That we comply with Him by obeying Him. So whatever Allah has ordered, then we perform. And whatever He has prohibited, then we keep away from. Whatever Allah has made halal, then we act upon it, or we take it. Whatever Allah has made haram, then we keep away from it. So everything which Allah has ordered or commanded, then we comply with it inwardly and outwardly. Inwardly we believe in it, that is from Allah, and we have iman in it, and we comply with it in our actions and in our behavior. And this is the second thing which makes up Islam. And Islam is not complete except with a third matter. And this is al-bara'atu min ash-shirk wa ahlihi, which is that we free ourselves. We free ourselves from shirk and its people. And this means that first and foremost that we hate shirk in our hearts, that we hate it and we detest it, and we hate its people. And on top of that we free ourselves from them, and we are innocent from them, and we don't display love to them, we don't ally with them, we don't, and so on and so forth, whatever follows on from that. So these 3 affairs are the affairs that make up Al-Islam. Then the Messenger ﷺ, he said, وَعَمُودِهِ الصَّلَاحِ, that the pillar of the affair is the salah. And what is meant here is the 5 daily prayers. And the Shaykh has said that just like you have a pole which holds up the tent, if you were to take away the pole, then the tent would collapse and would fall. And later the Shaykh will go on to explain the ruling upon the one who abandons the salah, which is disbelief. But inshallah this will come in the benefits at the end of the discussion. Then the Shaykh said that the third affair that the Messenger mentioned was the peak of the matter, dhirwatu sinamih, the peak of the matter. And the sinam is like a camel hump. So here the peak has been treated as the uppermost part of a camel. So he said that the Messenger here mentioned jihad, because jihad here that by way of jihad is something that Islam gains ascendancy, that Islam gains victory and ascendancy. And then he mentioned some ayat in the Quran which kind of give this meaning. The first ayah in the Quran is Surah Ali Imran, the 3rd surah, verse 139, where Allah commands the believers, وَلَا تَهِنُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا وَأَنْتُمُ الْأَعْلَوْنَ إِن كُنْتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. So do not be weak, and don't grieve or don't be sad, for you will be uppermost. وَأَنْتُمُ الْأَعْلَوْنَ إِن كُنْتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. And this is in the state and the condition of jihad, that if you be strong, and if you have a firm resolve and you don't sad and you don't grieve, you will be uppermost. And the second verse that the Shaykh brings, Allah says, وَلَا تَهِنُوا وَتَدْعُوا إِلَى السَّلْمِ وَأَنْتُمُ الْأَعْلَوْنَ وَاللَّهُ مَعَكُمْ. That again, don't be weak and don't call to peace, and you will be uppermost and Allah is with you. So this shows that the reason why the Messenger ﷺ has likened jihad to the peak of the matter, or the uppermost affair is because by way of this jihad does Islam gain ascendancy and does Islam become uppermost. And then the Shaykh went on to explain an important ruling concerning this jihad, which is that this jihad is only that which is in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Messenger, he has explained this jihad, what is meant by this jihad, in the most complete way. And this is by way of the hadith in which a person asked the Messenger ﷺ concerning 3 men. A man, he fights in order to defend his land or to defend his people. A man, he fights in order to display his bravery or his courage. And a man, he fights in order that people may see, to see his position, what a great fighter he is, that he may be seen. Which of them is fighting in the path of Allah? And the Messenger ﷺ, when he responded, if you look at the way he responded, he said, "Man qatala litakuna kalimatullahi hiya al-ulya fahuwa fi sabilillah." He said that the one who fights so that the word of Allah is uppermost, then he is in the path of Allah. The Shaykh makes a point here. He says, look at the Messenger ﷺ, that when he was asked this question, the man who asked this question, he put three examples to the Messenger of 3 men. And when the Messenger replied, he didn't even address those three examples. He didn't even address those three men. The man who fought to protect his land, the man who fought for the sake of bravery, to show his bravery, the man who fought to be seen. He didn't even turn to them in the answer. But he said, "Man qatala litakuna kalimatullahi hiya al-ulya." That the one who fought so that the word of Allah is uppermost, he is the one who is in the path of Allah. So this shows that the Messenger, he dismissed those 3 and he gave importance to the one who fought so that this tawheed is spread amongst the people. That this kalima of tawheed is uppermost and this is spread amongst the people. Then, after this, the Shaykh says that after giving this great advice to Muaadh bin Jabal radiyallahu anhu, first of all of those actions that will enter him into paradise, and then the doors of goodness, which is sadaqah and the prayer at night, and then he then said, and also fasting, and he then said, "Ala ukhbiruka bimalaki dhalika kullih." Shall I not tell you of something which holds all of that together? So now something which brings all of that together and keeps it together. And Muaadh bin Jabal said, "Qultu bala ya Rasulullah." Of course, O Messenger of Allah. So the Messenger, he took hold of his tongue and he said, "Waqala kuffa alika hadha." As we said, he said, "Restrain this." So the Shaykh says, meaning, don't apply your tongue in qeel and qal, in speech, in this person said or that person said, and carrying and rating speech. And then the Shaykh brings a hadith which is related to this subject, in which the Messenger said, "Man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawmil akhir falyaqul khayran aw la yasmut." That whoever believes in Allah and the last day, then let him either say that which is good or let him keep silent. So a person doesn't speak except that he speaks with goodness. Then Muaadh bin Jabal, he replied with some sort of amazement. He said, "O Prophet of Allah, we are taken to account for that which we say, for that which we speak." And the Messenger, in responding to him, he said, "Thaqilatka ummuka ya Muaadh." This is a phrase which is used amongst the Arabs, that may your mother lose you, O Muaadh. Now the Shaykh says that this doesn't mean literally that may you die and may your mother lose you, but it's an expression used amongst the Arabs in order to encourage and to incite, in order to encourage something upon a person. And then after this, the Messenger replied to him and he said that, "Are the people thrown into fire with anything except due to the harvests of their tongues?" So after this, when Muaadh heard this answer and he realized, and he heard the statement of the Messenger ﷺ, then he understood this matter, which is that the tongue has no limit. That by way of a person's tongue, there is no limit to a person's tongue, because by way of this tongue, a person can commit shirk, and a person can speak with disbelief, and a person can speak with that which is fahsha, meaning something which is evil or shameful, or rude or shameful. So in other words, the Shaykh says that this tongue, it has no limit. And the meaning of this is that sometimes when you just reflect upon the statements which are made by people, either in history a person speaks with innovation. And that innovation, it remains through the centuries up until this time of ours. So look at the harvest, look at the produce of the statement uttered by the likes of those people who've passed before us. Those people who spoke with the bid'ah, or who originated the bid'ah of the Jahmiyyah, or the Asha'ira, or other than them. Look at the result of the effect of this tongue. The effect of this tongue has no limit. A person can speak with kufr, a person can speak with shirk, and this tongue, it can lead a person to these disastrous consequences. So this was a point, as the Shaykh says, that the messenger he put across to Muaadh bin Jabal. After this, so this is just like a brief discussion of the hadith. Now the Shaykh, he's going to bring some of the fawaid of this hadith. So he begins first of all by saying, point number 1 that we can extract from this is, look at the hirs, the eagerness of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum for knowledge. And we find that the Sahaba, when they used to ask the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam, did they used to ask just for the purpose of knowing the answer, or was it for the purpose of applying the answer? The Shaykh is asking a question. He says, the second, he says, this is different to what many of the people that do today, where, for example, they ask questions and their only intent is to know the hukm. They just want to know the ruling out of interest or out of whatever. And he says that this is, wrong. That this person, if he wants, he might act upon it, and if he doesn't, he might not act upon it. This is totally wrong. This is, the Shaykh says, this is an error, this is a mistake. And he says, on top of this, you find other people, he'll go to a Shaykh, he'll ask a question, he'll take the answer from him, then he'll go to another one and ask him the same question and take the answer from him, then he'll go to another one and ask him the question and take another one from him, because his intent is just merely to know what each scholar is saying, and then to gather all this together so that he knows these facts or these details. The Shaykh says, this is wrong, this is incorrect. And we find that the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, their concern was greater and more noble than this. Their concern was to ask in order to apply and to act and to benefit from this knowledge. Secondly, the Shaykh says, the second benefit is that look at Muaadh bin Jabal radiallahu anhu. Look at the great himma, or this great concern he has. He didn't ask the messenger about an affair from the world. Rather, he asked him about an affair of the hereafter. And he says this is something that's deserving of Muaadh, because he is from the fuqaha of the Sahaba. He's from the scholars, from the greatest scholars of the Sahaba. And because this is the same Muaadh that was sent by the Messenger ﷺ to the various lands, to the Yemen. And he sent him as a da'i, as someone who calls to Islam. He sent him as a mufti, as someone who answers the questions of the people, and someone who is a hakim, someone who is a judge amongst the people. This is the Muaadh that is being spoken of. And this Muaadh, look at this great concern that he had, that he spoke about, or that he asked about an affair from the dunya, the hereafter. And similarly, Sheikh Salih al-Sheikh, he also makes a similar point, and he says that look at this Muaadh bin Jabal. This Muaadh bin Jabal is from the most knowledgeable of the Sahaba. He's an alim, he's a faqih. And despite this, look at how humble he is, and he's still asking about an action that will lead him to paradise. Despite his knowledge, despite his greatness, despite his, him being a scholar. He says that this is different to many people today, like from those who are the students and those who seek knowledge. He says that they don't seem to have this great concern. So he says that this is an additional benefit that we should take from Muaadh, that alongside the greatness of his position, then look at how humble he still is. That an alim is still asking and finding ways and means of how he can enter paradise, despite his great knowledge. So this is an additional benefit that the Shaykh brings. Third benefit is that this hadith contains an affirmation of paradise and hellfire, and it's wajib to have iman in them both. And this is from the pillars of iman. The fourth benefit is that this action that Muaadh bin Jabal asked about is a reason or a cause for entering a person into paradise. The action itself. Now here the Shaykh, he discusses an issue, which is, how come that we have one hadith in which the Messenger ﷺ said that none of you will enter paradise by way of his own actions? And how come in this hadith Muaadh bin Jabal said, inform me of an action that will enter me into paradise? Isn't there a contradiction here? How come we have in one hadith that you will not enter paradise because of your actions, and how come in this hadith of Muaadh is asking about an action that will lead him into paradise? So what is the answer? And how can these two texts, how can they be reconciled? And the answer, the Shaykh says that the answer which has been given by the scholars is centered around the letter Ba. The letter Ba. Because in this hadith of Muaadh, Muaadh bin Jabal said, أخبرني عن عمل يدخلني الجنة ويباعدني من النار. And in the other hadith, لن يدخل أحد الجنة بعمله. The letter Ba has been used. So the question is that this letter Ba, it can be used in two ways in the Arabic language. The first way is sababiyya, what the Shaykh calls sababiyya, meaning that it's a cause, it's a reason. And the Shaykh gives an example. A person might say, I might say to you that I have honored you because you honored me. أكرمتك بإكرامك إياي. That I honored you, and the letter Ba has been used. I honored you because you honored me. So here, what is the reason why I'm honoring you? It's because you honored me. So this is from the angle of what is the reason, what is the cause. But it can also be used in a second way. This letter Ba can also be used in the second way, which is for an Iyaad. What the Shaykh says, an Iyaad, which is, for example, if I sell this book to you, then you will give me some money for that book. Right? So the Shaykh says, a person would say, بِئْتُ عَلَيْكَ هَذَا الْكِتَابِ بِدِرْحَمٍ. That I sold this book to you for a dirham, with a dirham. So I'll give you the book and you give me a dirham. So here, in this second way that this letter Ba is used, it means that I've given you something, so you now owe me something. You have to give me something back. You have to compensate me with something. So in the hadith, in which the Messenger ﷺ said that none of you will enter paradise on account of his actions, what is being negated is the second one. Why is this? Because, as the Shaykh continues and he explains, he says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't need to pay us for anything. Rather, even if we were to just take one favor that Allah has given to us, then every single action, or even the greatest of the actions which anyone can perform, that one favor will compensate for everything. And the Shaykh gives an example. He says, take for example this breathing that every one of us performs. We all breathe. We talk and we don't even realize that we're breathing automatically. We eat and we don't even realize that we're breathing automatically. We drink water and we don't even realize that we're breathing automatically. This one favor that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to the whole of mankind, then every single action which each person has done, from the greatest of the affairs, from worshipping Allah and from all of the other affairs, this one favor would pay back every single thing multiple times over. If this was the case, if Allah had to pay us for our actions, then just one of the favors in this dunya would repay every single thing back. So therefore what the Shaykh is saying, that this hadith in which the Messenger said that none of you will enter paradise because of his actions, this is a negation. This negates the fact that Allah has to pay us something, in the manner that the example that I've given. That if I give a book to someone, he has to pay me now. He owes me something. Allah doesn't owe anybody anything. Rather, just one of the favors would repay back every single action that you've done for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this hadith in which the Messenger negates that we will enter paradise, it's negating this meaning here. As for the hadith of Muaadh bin Jabal, when he said, inform me of an action which will enter me into paradise, then this is from the meaning, this is from the angle of the reason or the cause why you entered into paradise. So of course, when a person worships Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he performs the 5 pillars, when he adheres to all of the doors of goodness, and so on and so forth, then this will be the sabab, this will be the reason of him entering into paradise. So the Shaykh clarified this issue here. Then the Shaykh says that the Shaykh then continued and he said that this Sawm that the Messenger ﷺ mentioned is a junnah, that this Sawm is a shield. And he says that there's an issue which arises here, which is that if a person commits sins, then will this nullify his fast or not? And the Shaykh says that the majority of the scholars, they hold the view that if the sin which he falls into is a sin which is specifically been forbidden in the state of fasting, then it will nullify his fast. And if it's a sin which is just generally forbidden and has not been specified as nullifying the fast, then his fast will still be intact. He says, for example, a person might, he might eat some food, he might perform sexual intercourse or whatever. He says this will nullify his fast. As for things where, for example, he might backbite or he might, steal something or whatever, he says this will not nullify his fast. And this is something that the majority of the scholars are upon. And then he says that some of the scholars, they do hold the view that someone who commits major sins, or someone who doesn't need, for example, false speech or things like this, then his fasting is also nullified. And the reason they say this is because of the hadith in which the messenger said, whoever doesn't abandon false speech or acting by false speech, then Allah is not in need of him abandoning his food or his drink. So they say that because of this, it shows that Allah doesn't need his fasting or doesn't accept his fasting. And the Shaykh says that this is not the most correct viewpoint, because that the way that they've used this hadith is not actually correct, but the majority viewpoint of the scholars that was mentioned first, that is the most correct viewpoint. The Shaykh then continues, and from the benefits that he mentioned is that the messenger, look at the adab of the messenger alayhi salatu wasalam in ta'aleem, that how he in his teaching, look at his method. Muaadh bin Jabal, he only asked about a specific matter. He said, tell me of an action that will enter me into paradise. And the messenger asked that question, or he answered that question. However, on top of that, the messenger, he gave him 3 additional benefits which he didn't even ask about. The first of those benefits was that he said to him, shall I not tell you about the doors of goodness? The second benefit that he gave him was, shall I not tell you of the head of the matter and its pole and its peak? And the third benefit that he gave him was, shall I not tell you what holds all of this together? He says that this is from the adab of ta'aleem, from the adab of teaching. And the Shaykh says also that when you look at Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, you find that many people, they actually criticize Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah for falling into the same thing. They say that Shaykh al-Islam, when he begins a subject or he speaks about a subject in one of his books, he'll speak about that subject, then he'll speak about maybe a handful of other things, then he'll go on to this issue, and then that issue, and then this issue, and then this issue, then that issue. And he'll speak about many other affairs and move away from the original topic for which he was speaking or which he was writing. And some of the students of Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, they answered this, and they said, no, this is not right, because this is from the generosity of Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah. This is his good adab in ta'aleem, in teaching, and from his generosity in the sense that he's not withholding knowledge, and he's not holding knowledge back, and he's passing this on to the people. And then they bring a hadith of the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam to show that this was the way of the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam as well. This is a hadith in which the Messenger was asked about performing wudu from the water of the sea. He was asked about the water of the sea and performing wudu with it. So the Messenger said, huwa at-tahuru ma'uh, al-hillu maytatuh. So he was asked the question about wudu, but he responded with 2 things. He first of all said that its water is pure. So this answers the question. Yes, you can perform wudu with the water of the sea. But he added to that, he said, al-hillu maytatuh, that it's dead, it's halal, it's lawful for you. Meaning that you can eat that which is in the sea even if it's dead. So here, those people who defended Shaykh al-Islam, they said, look, the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam, he was asked specifically about water of the sea and does it purify or not, and he answered that question, and on top of that he gave additional knowledge to the questioner as well. And the same applies to the hadith of Muaadh, where Muaadh asked about an action that will enter him into paradise, and the Messenger gave him 3 additional benefits or 3 additional pieces of knowledge. So this shows that from the adab of a teacher, from the mannerisms of a teacher, is that when he teaches, that he is generous and kind with his knowledge, and he gives the people what he has of his knowledge, and he doesn't conceal this knowledge. Also from the benefits of this that the Shaykh brings here is that he mentions the virtue of those people who stay up at night and they busy themselves with the salah and they call upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala out of fear and out of hope, And he says that this is different to those people who spend all night long awake, and they spend it in either vanity or in fooling around, or even in something which is haram. He says these people who stay awake in this manner and who waste time in this manner, then the fact that they stay awake, it's either makruh or it's actually haram. It's prohibited, depending on what activity that they are falling into. Are they wasting time? Are they talking in vain? Are they doing something which is haram? So he's comparing the characteristics of the believers that Allah has described in the Quran and the people who waste their time in this manner. Then the Shaykh said, also from the benefits of this hadith, is that he mentions the danger of the tongue at the end, the danger of the tongue. He says this tongue is from the greatest and the most dangerous of the affairs that the person can have. Because perhaps he might speak a word out of anger, and he doesn't give it any concern, as a result of which he is thrown into the fire. Rather, he may be thrown into the fire for the duration of years, and he doesn't even realize. And similarly, he might utter a word of kufr, not even realizing, not even giving any importance, and he will become an apostate and refuges from Allah. And similarly, ghibah, he might commit ghibah in a gathering, or he might make kadhib, he might lie, and so on and so forth, or he might make a slander. He says all of these things, all of these affairs, are from the most dangerous of affairs, which can have a person thrown on his face into the hellfire. Then he mentioned the hadith of the messenger, who said that whoever guarantees for me that which is between his two jaws and that which is between his two legs, then I will guarantee him paradise. So meaning the one who withheld from zina and the one who withheld from speaking that which is haram, then this person will enter into paradise. Also from the benefits of this hadith is again another issue related to teaching. How the Messenger ﷺ, that when he taught by way of action as well as by way of speech. So when he said to Muaadh, when he took hold of his tongue, he physically grabbed hold of his tongue and he said, restrain this. So this shows, he didn't just say to him by way of his speech, just restrain your tongue. Rather, he physically grabbed hold of his tongue. He says the reason for this is because, as the Shaykh says, that when a person sees something and he hears something, it stays in his mind for longer. The impression in his mind is created for longer. He says, for this reason you find that the Sahaba follow this methodology as well. He gives an example, that when Uthman radiyallahu anhu was asked to perform or to teach the people how to perform wudu, he said, bring me some water and gather round. And then he began to physically perform the wudu. If he had said, you first of all begin with this, and then you wash your hands, and then you do this, and he just mentioned it by way of his action, then the people might have heard something, walked away, and then they might have forgotten. But as for when they see it as well, then this is greater in making a person remember and act upon the knowledge which he's been given. So here, a method of teaching is that the messenger would use both speech and also action. Another benefit from this hadith is that we find that the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum, that whenever they had something that was uneasy in their hearts, whenever they had any difficulty in their hearts, they would ask up until that unease was removed. So here Muaadh bin Jabal radiyallahu anhu, when the messenger said that you should restrain your tongue, and he felt something uneasy inside, straight away he asked this question: are people thrown into the fire because of what? Are we held to account because of our speech? He didn't walk away and leave this issue in his heart. Rather, whenever there was an ishkal or a difficulty, the Sahaba would ask up until the ishkal was removed. And then the Shaykh here mentions a point, which is a point of our belief, which is, or a great benefit, which is that any specific issue which the Sahaba never asked about, and which has not occurred in the book or in the Sunnah, with respect to the issues of belief, then it is obligatory to withhold from it. Right? So any question that was never asked by a Sahabi, or which never occurs in the book and the Sunnah, then it's wajib, and this is a point of belief, it's wajib for us to withhold from it. To withhold from it. He says, when a person asks you about something regarding Allah's names or Allah's attributes, or regarding Allah's actions, or regarding the last day, or any other such issue which the Sahaba didn't ask about, and it's not known from any narration or any text that the Sahaba asked about it, then the Shaykh says, say to this person, هَذَا بِدْعَةٌ. To ask this question is a bid'ah. Because if it was goodness, and if there was some good in this, then the Sahaba, they would have preceded us in this affair. Because why? They were the most eager of people for knowledge. And they were the most fearful of people. They had the most awe, khashya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The next benefit that the Shaykh brings is that he says, the benefit which is contained in this hadith is the warning from loosely using your tongue. Just applying and using your tongue loosely. And he says that the hadith that we passed by earlier, Man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawmil akhir falyaqul khayran aw la yasmut, that whoever believes in Allah and the last day, then let him say good, or otherwise remain silent. The Shaykh says that if we were content and happy with this statement here, then we would have been saved from many, many affairs. That as people, we would have been saved from many, many calamities and many, many affairs of destruction. Because a person sometimes might say something and then he has remorse. But once that word has been uttered, it's too late. You can be as remorseful as you want, but once that word or that letter has come out of your mouth, it's too late. It's done the damage. It's done, it's caused the problem, and your remorse, even though you might feel remorseful, which is a benefit for you, the damage has still been done. So he says that if we were to reflect upon this statement here and give it its true, its true worth, then we as a society would be saved from many, many harms and many, many difficulties and many, many tribulations. And this is the benefits. These are some of the benefits that the Shaykh has brought. There are many others, but inshallah I think we've run out of time. Because the Salatul Dhuhr will be in approximately 15 minutes. So inshallah we'll stop there, and maybe you can use the next 10-15 minutes to prepare for the Salatul Dhuhr inshallah. And just a reminder then, as for the program, the next lecture will be inshallah at 2:15 by Shaykh Al-Anjuri, which will be a telelink, and that will be translated inshallah ta'ala. And after that will be Shaykh Ubaid's lecture at 5 o'clock on the levels of calling the soul to account. وجزاكم الله خير.